Hello, and welcome to the world's best Python bootcamp. My name is Angela, I'm a senior developer and the lead. The course is structured around the 100 Days of Code challenge. So you can look forwards to 100 days of lovingly crafted content that is going to cover every aspect of Python programming, from web development to data science. It's the only course you Every level is covered in the course. Got school? Working a full-time job? Have to look after kids? I know you're busy. I've timed each day of the course to take less than 2 hours to find out why over 500,000 students have rated my course 5 stars and see what you can do by mastering Python. see what others are doing as a part of their 100 days. And that's all there is to it. So here's to your success, and let's get started with the course.
Hey guys, it's Angela here. After courses we built for you. The first tip I have for you is to use another screen. That way you can watch the lesson on a tablet or phone. You've learnt. It comes with line numbers and handy indentation guides, which is super useful when it comes to writing out Python code. Coding I've created for you. They contain some of the messages I keep around my desk to keep me motivated, and I hope they'll help you too. Tip day you tick off, and day by day you'll learn and grow as a developer. This course is a safe space where you can make mistakes. Hey guys, welcome to day 1 of your 100-day journey. And today we're going to learn about printing, commenting, debugging, string manipulation, and variables. So it's chock-a-block full of really fun stuff. And by the end of today, you will have created a band name generator program. So this is the final project of today. And the idea is that, let's say that your friend was starting a new band, a rock band or a classical band, and they're struggling to come up with a good name. So you come into the rescue and send them your band name generator program. So it asks you for the name of the city that you grew up in. So mine was Alternatively, if you don't want to type out the full URL, you can head over to the course content here and then click on the resources and click this link to head straight over there. And then once you're there, all you have to do is to click run and you'll be able to preview how the final product is going to work. So you can type in your own city and follow the instructions until you get to the end result. So once you're ready, head over to the next lesson and let's get started and get coding straight away. To begin, open up your browser and head over to this URL. Now, if you didn't want to type all of that out and that the whole reason why we're learning to program is to be able to tell the computer what it needs to do and for it to follow our commands. So let's go ahead and tell the computer to do something. And we're going to do that by writing our first line of code. So in this case, I'm creating something called a print function, which is just the word print, all in lowercase, and then followed by a set of parentheses. Now, inside these parentheses, I'm going to tell it what I want it to print. And hopefully it's going to output that inside our console. So I'm going to start off by writing the classic hello world inside here. And then once you're ready, then go ahead and click run. After a few seconds, you should see the computer follow your command, namely printing the words that you told it to print inside the console or the output area over here. And once it's done, it indicates that with the little orange arrow. And the way that this command works is super simple. You have the keyword print followed by a set of parentheses, and then inside the parentheses, you tell it what you want it to print. And once you've inserted that, then when this line of code gets executed by the computer, it'll know to simply print or output the thing that you've placed in between the parentheses. But notice here that it's not just the word "Hello World!" exclamation mark that I've put. Look at the error message. It actually has a little caret sign right here showing you that there's something that's probably not right here. And it might jog your memory that, oh yeah, I've forgotten a closing double quote. And now when we run our code, you'll see that it's good as new. So now it's your turn to try it out in a code challenge. Head over to the next lesson, sign up to our classroom, and then I'll guide you through getting started on your first coding challenge. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson. Throughout this course, we'll be getting you involved in a lot of these interactive coding exercises. And the idea is that you're not just sitting here watching me talk, that you're actually putting everything you're learning into practice. That way, it actually becomes your own. These are great because we can give you instructions and show you what should happen if you write the correct code, what it needs to do, and you'll be able to write your code as well as see it run in the console. Once you're done with your code, you'll be able to submit it and see the tests run. And if you've written the link in step 2 in the course resources and sign up for our course, and then go over to the first exercise, printing, and give it a go. All right, pause the video now. All right, how did you get on? I really hope you gave this a good go, because it's in these moments where you're going to be learning the code. Unfortunately, no amount of listening to me talk is actually going to give you these skills. It's only when you actually try it out and get the computer to do the thing that you want it to do, that's when you become the master of the computer, also known as a programmer. So in this case, the instructions are pretty simple. We have to use what we learned about the print statement to output these 3 lines. And notice how in this GIF, the lines are printing out in separate lines. This one gets printed, then this one, then this one. But because it happens so fast, it seems like as if they're getting printed as a single block. So we're told to write our code below this line. And we know that in order to print something, we use the print function with a set of parentheses. And inside the parentheses is where we tell it what we want it to print. So in the first instance, it's day 1, space, then it's really easy to make spelling mistakes. Exactly the same as what we've got here in the GIF. This is what we want. And when I click submit, you'll see that my tests all pass and I can now submit my assignment and I've now completed the coding challenge. Now, coming back to this single quote, why is it that I've got a single quote here rather than a double quote, which is what we've been using all this time? Well, because in Python, it doesn't actually care whether if you enclose these strings, so these pieces of text that are not to be interpreted as code, inside single quotes or inside double quotes. It is identical to the computer. This honey badger literally doesn't care. But if you had a set of double quotes and then you wanted another set of double quotes inside the double quotes, so for example, if I replace this with double quotes, you'll see that already the syntax highlighting is already screaming out to us. There's something that's not quite right here because the colors are not the same as here, where the print function is in a particular always down here as a link. So I hope you enjoy this challenge. In the next lesson, we're going to get back to learning about Python and we're going to learn about strings and string manipulation. For all of that and more, I'll see you there. All right, guys, let's get back to learning about a few more things that we can do with strings. You saw in the last lesson that if we wanted to print things on individual lines, then we actually had to write them a few times, right? We had to write print on 3 lines if we wanted it to be printed 1, 2, 3, like so. Now, in this lesson, I want to show you a method where we can do the same thing, but by using a single print method, so saving ourselves a few characters. So the way that we would create a new line is by writing a backslash and the N character. And now if I go ahead and write hello world again afterwards and I hit run, or you can always use the shortcut, which is Command Enter on Mac or Control Enter on Windows. And you can see that once that line of code computers, and it got electrocuted, unfortunately, for the moth. And for the programmer, it meant that his code wasn't performing as he would expect it to. So he actually had to go into the computer, pick out the moth, and fix the wires so that it would work again. Now, we don't have any moths flying around in our code, thankfully, but what we do have to do is we have to pick out the errors so that our code will run in the way that we expect it to, without any errors. So head over to the next lesson and try out your first debugging exercise. To begin, I want you to locate the day 1.2 debugging exercise. And now, as you did before, go ahead and read through the instructions, Be mindful that the output must match the example output precisely. And when you hit run, this is the outcome you're looking for. So there's quite a few things broken here, but I want you to have a go at fixing each line individually and pulling out the bugs from the code. So pause the video now and give that a go. All right, so how did that go? If you haven't got your computer in front of you, if you're traveling, if somehow you can't access the exercise, just pause, and when you've got time, then complete the challenge and then come back to the course. It is so important that you actually do some hands-on stuff, and I stress that this is the only way that you're going to become the rockstar coder that I know you can be. Let's take a look at the code below. You can see that when we run our code as it is right now, we get a as text down here. So what we have to do is to change this outer part from double quotes into single quotes. And now you can see when it highlights this part, it's all the same color, including the plus sign. Now it sees this as a complete string, and it's not looking at this as if it's code. So now if we run our program, you can see the entire sentence being printed out. So if you've completed the challenge and you've gotten everything right, then you're now done with this exercise. If you got stuck and you want to have a look at the solution, as always, it's down here. And it might be useful to have a look at this page to see where you might have missed something or where you might have gotten something wrong. So I hope you enjoyed this code exercise. In the next lesson, we're going to learn about a new type of Python function, which is the input function. So for all of that and more, I'll see you there. coming back to our replet, the day one printing REPL that you should have from previously, I want to talk about a different function. So we've seen the print function and all the things that we can do to strings and use the print function and debug it. But what if we wanted to be able to enter some data? So if we wanted to say, ask the user, what is your name? And when we run this code, you can see that being printed. But there's no way for the user on this side to be able to give our code some data to work with. In order to do that, instead of using the print function, we're going to use a different function, and it's called the input function. And notice how, as I'm typing, Code Intelligence is already giving me some suggestions because it thinks it knows what I might want, and it's right. So this is what the input function looks like. This is the name of the function, and again it's followed by some parentheses. Inside the parentheses is the prompt that I'm going to give the user. So when I run this code, it will say, what is your name? And then the cursor will stay at the end of this line because it's expecting some sort of input. If I give it my name, Angela, and I hit enter, then this piece of data has now been passed back into my code, and it now replaces this part of the code. So I'm passing data from over here back to over here where I can use it in my code. Now notice the difference here. It looks quite similar. When we run print, you can see it says, what is your name? And then the code execution ends. And we know it ends because it's showing us this little orange arrow. But notice when I run input instead, I don't see the orange arrow. My program is actually paused right now in order for the user It's simply Command Z or Control Z. All right, so in this lesson, we learned about the input function, we learned about putting functions inside other functions and being able to get user input from the console by using the input function. So now I've got a coding exercise for you in the next lesson. And if you've commented this line of code thoroughly and you've fully understood how it works, then you'll be able to breeze through the next exercise. So for all of that and more, I'll see you there. All right, so again, it's time to put theory into practice and get some hands-on action. You should be able to find the day 1.3 assignment, which is inputs. Click on it and you will see the instructions for this particular challenge. And the idea is that you're going to write a program that's going to print the number of characters in a user's name. For example, if I input my name, which is Angela, it should output the number 6 because there's 6 characters in the word Angela. But remember, you can't just print out the number 6 because when I'm checking for this code, I'm going to try a whole bunch of different names as the input. And you're going to have to use a little bit of thinking, a little bit of Googling, and also a little bit of messing around with the code in order to get it to work. If you need any help, there's a few hints down here for you. And if you really get stuck, then you can take a look at the solution, but not until you've really given it a go. And I really, really want to know that you've tried hard. And the whole point of these exercises is you sit there and scratch your head a little bit and actually give it a good go. we need is some form of input function, right? And the prompt that we're going to give the user is what is your name or something similar that asks them for their name. And I like to add a space at the end of the prompt. This way, when you run it, you don't actually have that cursor straight next to the question mark, which looks a bit weird. But either way, once we've entered an input, then this part gets replaced by that input, and we're going to do something with it. We're going to calculate the length of that string. Now, using our eyes, we can obviously see that it's 6 characters long, but what if you have a really long name? Three functions here that are all nested inside each other. So this is the first one. This is the one that's going to get the input from the user and replace this part with whatever it is that they type down here. Then that string gets calculated using the len function to get the length of that string. And then that number will get printed by the print function. Now let's go ahead and hit run and let's give it a go. So let's try Jack, hit enter, and it tells us that it's 4. But using the same line of code, if we try a different name, Angela, then it prints out 6. How did you get on with this? If you got stuck, then have a look at the solution replit. If you want to. Once you're done, head over to the next lesson and I'm going to talk to you all about Python variables and how we'll be able to identify pieces of data in our code. So for all of that and more, I'll see you there. Now, in this lesson, I want to talk to you about Python variables, and it's a really useful concept. But before we get started, first, I want you to head over to the course resources and get hold of the day one variables start replit sandbox. Or you can simply type the URL into the browser. I want you to first go ahead and fork this starting code so that you can work on your own version of it. Now, once you've done that, then the first thing I want to do is to take a look at this line of code that you should have already. And when we run this, we should be pretty familiar with what happens, right? It will ask us for our name, and when we hit enter, nothing happens. But behind the scenes, this name or this input has now been received by this function. But once that's done, it kind of just disappears, right? And there's no way for us to be able to refer to it in the future. Or is there? Well, this is where variables come in really handy. If I give the result of this action a name, well, then I'll be able to refer to it later on. So at the beginning of the line, I'm going to call it name, and then I'm going to add an equal sign. And what this does is it assigns whatever it is that the user typed in as the input to this prompt to a variable called name. So now, if I go ahead and run my code again, and I enter a name, now once I hit enter, normally there's no way for me to get hold of this anymore, right? But now I can actually go ahead and write print. I'm going to print the value of this variable name. So now if I run my code and I write a name, hit enter, you'll see that this gets printed. And I can use this at any point in my code just by referring to the name that's attached to this value. So it's almost like we've saved the data from length, like so. So in this case, this data is stored under this name, and then that data is what's going to be used in order to carry out this function. And then the result will get stored in yet another variable, and finally that variable will be printed out. So let's go ahead and run this code and type in my name, so Angela, and hit enter, and it does exactly the same thing. But now we've got all of these pieces of data all associated with a name that we can refer to at any later point in our code. Now it's time, you guessed it, for a code challenge. And I'm going to get you to apply what you've learned. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson. All right, guys, it's time for your final coding exercise. So click on day 1.4 variables. Now, the aim of the game is to switch the values of these two variables around. So if we go ahead and run our code as it is, it's going to ask us for a value of A, let's call it 5, and then it's going to ask us a value for B, let's call that 100. And then when I hit enter, what you want the code to do is to go ahead and print A equals 100 and B equals 5. So basically switch those values around. And you're going to have to write your code in here. And it's really, really important that you don't change any of the code here or the code here. Now, it's easy enough to simply just write print A equals B and B equals A, but this doesn't test you on anything. This is not the solution. This is wrong. Don't change inside A, which is now contained inside the variable C. These three lines achieve this little switcheroo that we've got here. And this is one of the most common programming interview questions that you'll come across. And the code is super simple, but what you have to apply here is some logic. And I usually think about real life examples like the cups, and I hope that helped you as well. If this was at all confusing, then have a go trying this out in Thonny. But if you got it right, then congratulations. This was actually quite a hard challenge. You had to think about a lot of things and think outside the box as well. So give yourself a pat on the back if you got it right. If you didn't get it right, then I really recommend to put this code inside Thonny and see how it's being moved around so that you really, really understand what's going on behind the scenes. And then you can move on to the next lesson, where we're going to talk about some of the rules around naming variables. For all of that and more, I'll see you there. Now, when it comes to naming your variables, you can pretty much call it whatever it is you want. So instead of calling this name, I could have just called it N. And I could have called this L. And as long as I'm consistent, so if I wanted to get the length of N, then I would have to change this as well. And if I wanted to print out L, then I have to change this as well. But there's a couple of rules that you should probably follow. And the most important one is to make your code readable. Because if you come back to this in 6 months, 12 months, N and L is not going to have a lot of meaning for you. So try to make sure that it actually makes sense to you. And if you want to, you can actually have multiple words in the name of your variable. So for example, if you wanted to call this username, then you would write the word user and then you would separate each of the words with an underscore. But you can't have a space in between. This is not valid code. And if you try to run it, you'll get a syntax error. So the name of the variable has to be one single unit. And in order to separate words in Python, we use the underscore. Now, if you want to use numbers in the name of your two spellings are identical, then the computer doesn't care at all. So when you get a name error in your code, you now know it's probably because you've misspelled or mistyped one of the variable names somewhere in your code. Now, in the next lesson, I prepared a quiz for you where you'll get to select which variable names are valid and which ones are not good practice. Have a go at that over on the next lesson. All right, guys, it's time for the final project of today. So the program that you're going to be building looks a little bit like this, and you can check it out if you head over to this link, either by typing it in or heading to the course resources page and clicking on the corresponding link. But essentially, it's a band name generator, and it asks you for a city that you grew up in and the name of your pet, and then it combines those together and gives you the name of your band. There's a couple of things to note here. Firstly is notice when this input got triggered, the cursor actually showed up on a new line. So if I run this again, you can see it says, what's the name of the city you grew up in? And then the cursor is on the next line. And what I want you to do is to go ahead and head over to this starting project. So this is the URL, and it's also, of course, in the course resources. And once you head over here, you can fork this code and complete your own version. So there's a couple of steps in here. Show on a new line like this. So here's the cursor, but here's the input, just so that you get a bit of space and you're not typing it in directly after the prompt here, like what we have. So how do we do that? Well, you learned about modifying strings by creating a new line using the \n. And we can add that both to the end of the city input and the pet input. And now when we run our code, you'll see that the cursor now shows up on the next line and our program looks a lot better. So there you have it. This is how you solve this boss challenge, and this is how you create the band name generator project. So I hope you had fun with me today learning Python and a lot of the fundamentals of Python. And tomorrow I've got another jam-packed module of really awesome tutorials and code challenges and projects for you to sink your teeth into. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. So have a rest now and let your brain work on the things that you learned while you sleep. And I'll see you here bright and early. Good night and see you tomorrow.
Well done! You've just completed your first day. And remember that a journey of 1,000 miles can't begin without the first step. So congratulations on doing that and completing it. Now remember that the first few days might take a little bit longer. Keep going and you'll come back tomorrow refreshed, and you'll tackle the next day's subjects with the same vigor that you did today. So have a good rest, and I'll see you tomorrow.